Runners Only with Dom Harvey.
Runners Only with Dom Harvey and Mike Rudling, Radix Nutrition founder and CEO. G'day, mate.
G'day.
Thank you so much for having me here today in your fabulous space. Here we are, Radix Nutrition HQ in the Waikato, a massive state-of-the-art factory. It's a beautiful environment. If I was sick, I think I'd probably feel safer here than in Middlemore Hospital in terms of the hygiene and the beauty of this place.
Oh, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much for coming down.
Yeah. First things first. What is a Radix? Why Radix?
Well,
Why did you see if I'm you and I'm 23 years old, which you were when you started the company, and I'm starting a nutrition company, I'd probably call it Dom Harvey Nutrition. You weren't tempted to call it, Rudling Nutrition?
No, well, a name's a pretty special thing, and we had a few weeks of soul searching, a lot of looking online or looking through for meaning on words and thesauruses, but I wanted a name that would really represent how we viewed nutrition and health, which is to take it right back to fundamentals and understand where these things actually come from. And I found the Latin word radix, which is the root of a complex system in biology or mathematics. And that is represented for us. We've always taken a really deep first principled look at where our health and performance comes from, what is metabolism, what's it's affected by, what nutrients. And that word's given us meaning ever since. And the Latin term for a complex system, which is how we view nutrition.
I appreciate that explanation. I had no idea what people ask me. What does it mean? I don't know.
Yeah, so there's a few companies around the place called Radix now, but at the start there was just one or two. Yeah. But who knows? Maybe it's trendy.
One thing that I've learned from my association with Radix Nutrition over the last couple of months is just how focused you are on being the leader and the front runner and ahead of the competition you are. And I suppose in a way that extends into things like being innovative with your marketing, like sponsoring a podcast. Podcast is a growing sort of media form, but you guys approached me about sponsorship, which I thought that's really innovative. Why did you decide to sponsor the podcast, by the way?
Do you know how long that decision took us?
I don't know. I've spent a bit of time shadowing you today. I can't imagine it was a quick one. I feel like it was a fairly meticulous decision.
I reckon that was under 5 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we...
Did you rush into a decision?
No, it was a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer. Yeah, I didn't spot the opportunity. Some of my colleagues did, and you guys were fantastic and have been ever since. So we thought it was a no-brainer. The other one we loved about it is that your story and what you're trying to start, if we could spend any of our advertising budget into help bring awareness to what you're doing, we thought that'd be a fantastic mark to leave behind. And you guys will go on to be huge, and we hope that we could play some role in helping get that going. So no, it was an easy decision. It's been fantastic.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, easy decision. And I'm so pleased to be associated with you guys. It makes me want to work harder to spread the Radix Nutrition name as well.
You guys are doing great.
Yeah, I think so. I appreciate that. Actually, something else that might be worth bringing up. The biggest podcast episode I've had to date was one a couple of months back with Zane Robertson, one of New Zealand's most accomplished middle distance runners of all time. But he did an exclusive interview with me on the Runners Only podcast when it was announced that he'd been banned from all forms of sport for 7 years for using EPO, which is a performance enhancing drug. And I was very excited when I scored this exclusive, and I got on the phone to your CEO because I thought he'd want to share in the excitement. Yeah. And to my surprise, he said, "Wait, let me run this past the team and I'll get back to you." And you guys intentionally wanted to be excluded from that episode. You didn't want to be involved.
I don't know if we did the right thing on that. We were having a really, really busy day, and I wanted to say yes. I probably don't have the view on drugs and sport that many people would think that I do, but a lot of athletes, this is a really tough industry. You need to be pretty forgiving with young athletes and the decisions they make, because a lot of times they're just kids. But I thought that was a yes, and then I thought I was too tired and too fast to make a good decision, so we sidestepped it. But I don't know if we did the right thing, but I haven't listened to the full podcast, but it was a really...
It's a tough listen.
Yeah, but it's a really meaningful question and an experience to have gone through, and we probably should have been there alongside it.
Did you... Was part of it nerves that people would see the content and then see the Radix Nutrition logo and draw a loose link between the two? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I didn't know, but we've been so busy, and I just thought we'd play it really safe.
Right.
And that was why. But I will listen to the podcast, and it's a challenging time, and I hope he's okay.
Yeah, well, I'm in regular contact with him on WhatsApp, so, I mean, day by day, he's getting better and better. It's funny, though, isn't it? So I'm from a commercial radio background where any sort of publicity you can get, you froth at the opportunity. And then I saw it from your perspective, and I thought, okay, this is why I'm not running a successful company.
We might have done it wrong, but how did he get in touch with you? I don't know the story.
We've been bouncing messages backwards and forwards on Instagram for a while now, so that's how that link came up. But you guys are you take that stuff very seriously, don't you? Like cleanness in sport, and that reflects in your products. And
we make our products. We go to extraordinary lengths to make sure we're not going to get a positive result for someone. So we drug test our products, and we know our facility well and our suppliers. But it's a difficult part of sport, and you keep hoping it will go away, but there's a messy side to sport and a lot of pressure, and young people as they figure out who they are in life and what you're meant to do and not meant to do. And I feel sorry for guys that go through that and make those decisions, and invariably they end up, seeing the error of their ways, and you just hope that they get past it okay. But
well, that's the thing with Zane. I think it's probably a valuable lesson for any young people in sport, saying you can see him and say, don't do what this guy did. Like he's messed his life up. Like everything that means something to him. He's now got to, I mean, he'll be fine. He's 33. He just has to reshape his life. But at the moment, it feels like the life that he's spent, I don't know, the last 16 or 17 years building is effectively over.
Yeah. But there's an exciting life around the corner for him, I'm sure.
100%. I agree.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go all the way back. So, are you a New Zealander? You're an Englishman. You're from a place called the Isle of Wight, which is a smallish island
off the south coast,
off the mainland of England.
Yeah.
So, you're born in New Zealand?
No. I was born on the Isle of Wight. I'm from the UK. My father actually was born in London, but when he was 8 or 9, moved to Auckland, and he was there until his mid-20s. Yeah,
that's why I thought perhaps you were born here, because your dad was
basically Kiwi.
Came here at the age of 11, became the youngest cop ever in New Zealand, became a cop at the age of 16.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being pulled over or arrested by a 16-year-old?
Yeah, well, if you've met Paul, maybe you could, but no, he's very proud of that. But he was, we spent, all of my lifetime obviously in the UK, and he wanted to move back to New Zealand for a long time. And I was cycling in San Diego at the time, and my cycling career came to an end, and I moved back home, and home at that time was Russell in Northland.
Could think of worse places to come.
It's been amazing.
Yeah.
No, I spent, when I was a kid, my grandparents lived in Howick in Auckland, and really fond memories coming over and visiting them maybe once every year or so. But New Zealand's a special country.
Yeah. So let's talk about your dad for a little bit. So a cop in the New Zealand Police Force at the age of 16.
Yeah.
Then by the time he's 21, he taps out of that and becomes a competitive sailor.
Yeah. He's always loved sailing. So
what sort of boats are we talking? Like a small
he was
one-person?
sailing a boat called a Finn, which was the men's Olympic single-handed dinghy, and he finished his time in the police, and he had a sail-making business to help support he and a few of his friends, beginning careers in sailing, and I think that business kind of took off a bit, and he got split between the business and his sailing career, and I think he made it to Olympic reserve, but he had other commitments with a young family and his business over there. But yeah, he's always loved sailing. He was kind of one of the founders of, or pioneers, I guess you could say, of using composite materials in the sailing industry. So carbon fibre, Kevlar.
Wow.
When he got into it, boats were made out of wood.
Yeah, right.
And he saw that boats are pretty old-fashioned and could learn a lot from the aircraft industry. So, which no one listened to at the time. Boats were made in traditional ways, and most of the America's Cup technology, the materials, the engineering, the science behind it would have started with his first major company, SP Systems, in the 90s and early 2000s in the UK, and they made everything from I think they made the first carbon fibre monocoque chassis for Formula One with McLaren.
Wow.
They've sailing. So he had a 20-odd year career in composite materials, and big inspiration. He's done some cool stuff.
Yeah, and isn't it? So, I don't know if this is something. You seem like a guy that's always constantly looking forward rather than spending much time sitting down reflecting on what's happened.
Yeah, I'm not good at that. Yeah.
But it's funny to see like if you compare the trajectory of your dad's life and yours, it's very similar. Like a competitive sport, then tapping out to focus on business at a relatively young age.
Yeah, I get. I'm kind of funny that you see those things as you go. I'd like to learn from a few things here and there, but it does look like we're going down a similar path.
How do you mean learn here and there? Like just what? You're a dad now. Like raise your son differently to how you were raised. Is that what you mean? Or
I've grown up around quite a lot of pressure, and I guess I keep being in those situations, and it would probably a skill I don't have to avoid that. But
right, pressure like a is it a high performance family?
If you take on a lot,
yeah.
There's a Hunter Thompson quote I always like, which is not related to or meant in this, but if you buy the ticket and take the ride, and if you try something difficult, it's it can be pretty hard at times.
Well, but like the impression I get from my dealings with you is you're a perfectionist. But do you think that's something that's in your DNA, or something that's been like drummed into you from your parents?
No, I'm good at building stuff. So if something's important, it needs to be done well.
I feel like, but anything you do, I feel like you're going to do.
I'm crap at a lot of things, I think, but I'm good at some things. But I get called a perfectionist. But if something's important, do it well. If you don't do it well, it'll come back and bite you. And then there's a lot of things I don't do. So I don't reflect a great deal.
Right. What are you crap at? What have you done that you're like, nah, this isn't for me? What springs to mind?
Yeah, sure.
I can't think of anything.
You mentioned it before we start. Like, I tend to focus on the things that I want to do.
Yeah,
and consistently, my favourite thing has always been learning. When you do something for 10 years, you become very good at it, and the joy of being a novice in it goes away. And it's fantastic to start from fresh and to learn things. So,
but from my perspective, I'd disagree. It's like I hate being in the learning phase, and I like getting through that phase to the point where you can do something okay.
Yeah, I think if you keep pushing, you're always learning, which I don't. I've always enjoyed pushing further, I guess, because you learn more.
So you're in the Isle of Wight.
Skiing. I'm crap at skiing.
But I bet if you decided to do it well, you could end up doing it well. But
no, I'm never. My wife is an amazing skier, and we tried 3 or 4 times now, and I'll let that one go.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
Right. So you go to boarding school at the intermediate age, I think we call it here in New Zealand,
11
like 11,
12.
Yeah. Was that always the plan to go to boarding school? The reason I ask it, here in New Zealand, it's me and my brother, when we were growing up, it was like sort of hung over our head. Like if we're being naughty or getting detention at school, it's like, you keep that up, you'll go to boarding school. So it was like a punishment. Yeah,
it probably was. Yeah, no,
Or was it always in the plan? That
when I was a kid, so growing up on the Isle of Wight is a pretty small community, and I was a swimmer. And there's a school in the UK which is probably it's a sports academy called Millfield, and it gave me a chance to be looked after with education, and as I said to you earlier on, pretty dyslexic. And then they had an amazing swimming team, so that was a chance to just focus on the things that at that time were important. It was a privilege, but a bit of it would be kicked out of the house. And
Really? Like, what did you do? I can't imagine.
you gotta be a time when just sending your kids off to boarding school is pretty appealing, and I'm sure that was part of the calculation. But
Right. Could you think of any like incidents or reasons that your parents would have been like, right, that is we got to ship him off?
there's probably a few. They'll come back. I'll probably repress them fair enough. No, I think I tried my best. I think I was okay, but boarding school was an experience.
Yeah, was it? And how was that? Because it's some people completely thrive in that environment and just love it, and then they vow to send their own sons if they have them to boarding school, and then there's others that just are miserable the entire time and have nothing but.
Done well, you've got all your mates there, you've got fantastic facilities, and you just get to focus on what you love. Mm-hmm. And I remember it really fondly for that. And obviously homesickness and other things are difficult, but I was at a school with about 1,200 other pupils and fantastic friends and opportunities, but yes, super homesick at times, but that's good. I'm sure the time will come when I want to ask a question if you kick your son off to boarding school, but difficult, not on the cards at the moment. Yeah.
And what was the culture like at the time? Was it a bullying culture or a prank culture?
Yeah, it was interesting. When I was there, some of the older kids, that culture was there, and I'd say it'd been like, you get hazing and other terms. It's a crap culture, and I'd say it stopped while I was there. But when we started off, there was all of that when you're the first year going, and it's just BS. And
like the seniors on the juniors, or
and it's some sort of stupid tradition, and I was never a part of that. And I think that probably stopped completely while I was there. But silly stuff.
How did you manage to avoid it?
Oh no, I went through it when I went there. I just never do it to someone else. Right.
Oh, that's good. Was it still, you never did it to anyone else, but it was still going on in your year, and you just had the moral?
When we got to seniors, none of us were doing it to younger kids. It stopped, but you went through a bit. I think it was pretty good, but I was on the swimming team, and the boarding house I was in was mostly swimmers, and luckily we sort of stuck together. So I think they stood up for us a bit.
Yeah. But well, what was it? Can you remember what your hazing entailed?
No, it's just no good stories on that. I don't think, but it's not a cool thing.
Yeah.
Pretty tame stuff though compared to other things, but
like short sheeting the beds or things like that.
We did a lot of good pranks. Me and a few other guys flipped a guy's room in about half an hour, turn all the furniture upside down and glue it to the floor. Another guy, before one of the holidays, we watered the carpet and planted cress, and the cleaner or someone opened it up 3 or 4 weeks later, and there was a lawn inside his room.
That's a slow burning prank, but it's a good one.
That was but there's lots of fun like that, but no, it was it's all good.
Yeah, that's cool. And why swimming? I've never been a swimmer myself. I've always been a runner, but swimming seems like, for every insert name here, Michael Phelps, Ian Thorpe, there's thousands of kids every morning that are going to the pool with their parents at 5 a.m. and going back to the pool in the afternoon. Feels like it's a lot of work, a lot of training, a lot of discipline for the very, very slim chance of making it big.
A few things on that. So as I said earlier on, when I was a kid, I was really dyslexic. And I think at the point when my parents were not quite sure what to do, and the stories I've heard about it are pretty bad. And my parents got told by someone who was helping me that one thing that had been shown to be helpful is to get kids into a sport where they can have their own space and have a chance to practice, I think, something physical that doesn't involve learning. And so I got put into swimming at a young age. I started swimming when I was probably 3. I was squad swimming probably about 4.5 or 5.
What does that mean exactly?
Squad swimming is not swimming lessons. You turn up and you do an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it would be 4.5 to 6K in the pool.
You're joking. At preschool age?
Well, I might not have been doing that, but that's proper swimming at that level. And I remember doing swimming lessons and my dad asking the instructor to let me up a level, because otherwise you're learning to swim for years. And he, a friend of ours who was actually my midwife, I was learning to swim in a class with just really young kids, and Dad had taken me swimming a few times with him, and he knew that I could swim, I don't know, 1,000 metres, 1,500 metres as a kid, and you go to a swimming lesson, you'd swim 6 lengths. And so he told the instructor, look, this kid actually can swim, we need to stop with these, he needs to go up to a squad. And so he took me down to the pool one day, and like a Saturday, and I swam some big 1,500 metres. And then afterwards he took me around to our friend's house and said, oh, Mike and I've just been down to the pool, and I made him swim 1,500 metres. And Rosie, I remember Paul saying that she looked at him and thought it was some sort of child abuse. And everyone thought it was ridiculous. And then I ended up going to a squad, and you just straight off the bat, you do 3 or 4K and no one thinks a big deal of it. But swimming meant a lot for me because it gave me a chance to focus on something. Which I think later in life I've discovered that sort of myopic focus on things, and I got to sort of meditate for 2-4 hours a day on swimming. And like many sports, the skill goes as deep as you want. You can never perfect it. And I did that for 12 years maybe.
This may be just your answer for this rather than speaking collectively for every person that's ever swam in a pool. But as someone that's not a swimmer, as a distance runner, I can go out and my mind can wander and I can think about a million different problems. When you're swimming, does your mind wander, or do you have
100%.
to? Yeah,
I was talking to someone about this last week. So you can get completely lost in it. When I learned how to swim, I was lucky. My father and then a couple of the early coaches I had were technicians. They really focused on how to swim properly, and I used to practice that every stroke. And I didn't realise that other kids didn't do that. People jump in and thrash up and down, and then a few times a session or a few times a week they'll work on technique. And every time my hand went in the water in front of my face, you'd watch the catch, you'd watch the shape of it, you'd have a feel for it. I used to do that every single stroke, and you would completely fixate on it, and you can wake up half an hour later and realise that you've just been thinking about that, and you swum 1,500 metres. And I've done some really boring swim sets that would be, swimming can be really boring.
What?
We did stuff like 5x800 or 5x1000, which is horrendous. You realise the coach has just given up in the office beforehand, written down the simplest thing. But you can do something for 15 minutes and you remember the first 30 seconds, then you remember touching the wall at the end of it, just like running. I used to do it in cycling as well, which is probably a bit scarier. I used to get that in time trialing. Because time trialing sucks. Like, swimming's hard, but an hour time trial is just as...
Yeah, you're in pain from the outside,
and
aren't
it's
you?
as painful as you can make it. And it's a sad thing about it. And the better you get, the better you are at being right on the limit, and that every second sucks.
Yeah.
And you used to get to the point you couldn't remember anything that happened in the race. You just remembered that you got here. But I think you can always do that.
Maybe that's trying to sort of black out.
I think so.
So you're at, say, secondary school age, as we call it here in New Zealand.
Yeah.
What sort of swimming are you doing at that stage? Is it like 2 sessions a day, triple
So
sessions?
when I went to that school, 7 to 9 sessions a week. So some days would be doubles, so like double Monday, double Tuesday, Wednesday afternoon, double Thursday, and a Friday and a Saturday. Yeah, they weren't very smart with their training, and I think swimmers do too much.
It's a lot of work.
They do a lot of volume, and I think when you see young swimmers, they're always they look a bit stressed and too skinny, but that's just the culture of it.
So did you have any natural talent, or were you just a bloody hard worker?
No, I was really good at swimming.
Were you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I only focused on freestyle in the end, and I managed to always get it with my coaches that I just do freestyle, and I was really good at that.
And you gave it up because you ended up with a shoulder injury? Is that an overuse thing or what?
Yeah, one day we had a big session that was for butterfly, which I didn't normally swim, and it would have been like 3 or 4K of fly and fly drills, and that was the end of my shoulders. And wasn't very smart, but it was impingement, so it's just right over the top, and that never came back. I'm sure I could have fixed it, but that immediately destroyed my swimming career.
Right.
And both shoulders. And I tried for like a year, and I got to the point where I could maybe get 10 minutes without pain, and then it just came back. And when it came back, it was like that for a month. And I was fortunate. I had a couple of really good teachers at school who were into rowing, indoor rowing, which is a huge sport, but everyone thinks it's a weird sport. But
Indoor rowing.
on a rowing machine, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's a huge sport. Yeah, it's a weird sport. So, but there's
It's like having a running race on a treadmill. Like
yeah, it
indoor.
is, and but it's hugely competitive. So I buddied up with a couple of my teachers at school, and we used to go and do that. And I ended up, I did UK nationals, and I'm guessing I was like 8th in the UK indoor, and then I went to Europeans, and that was cool. But the school wasn't near any lakes, and at the same time I discovered cycling, and realised how cool that was, that you can just get on a bike and go somewhere.
Yeah, how did you? Yeah. After years and years of spending hours just looking at that black line on the pool, for hours on end, day after day, week after week, month after month. Yeah, the freedom of being out in the open on a bike, it must have been like nothing else.
It was incredible, and I started one summer holiday when I was a kid, and so I was at school. I came home, and my father didn't. School holidays are a waste of time, and
What do you mean?
You should be doing something.
Oh, your dad's words.
And I kind of agree, but he was lucky. We had a chap on the Isle of Wight called Roger Prowse, who would have been in his 60s, and he'd like 10 times in a row national and world champion for rowing indoors. And so I used to go and row with Roger in the evenings, and then in the morning, I think it was like 6:30, I'd be on the bike, and I'd get an hour and a half in cycling on the road, and that was a schedule. And I kind of loved being on the bike. You know, at that time, I was new to it, and your sun's coming up on some country road, and the birds are starting to sing, and you're by yourself, and it's just fantastic. And I loved it, and I got a chance to discover cycling that way. And then I went back to boarding school, and I was the only cyclist.
Oh, so they didn't have a cycle team.
No, there was.
So you were the best cyclist in the school.
By
immediately.
Immediately. And there was one teacher called Mick Day, and I used to go and hang out with him, and we became really good mates. And he would take me out bike riding once or twice a week. On Saturday or Sunday morning, I'd go for a bike ride with him, and he was just one of the best teachers I ever had.
It's so cool.
And he thought I was pretty good at it, and he never raced. He just loved cycling, and he was really passionate. The sort of people that really build a sport, you know, loved it. And he heard that British Cycling had a talent program where they would come around to schools and do a series of bike tests on kids, and if you achieve certain numbers, they take you onto a development squad. And he signed the school up for that, and it was me and one other girl from the school, and then about 6 other people from the local area were hosted at the school, and we went through these tests, and I was fortunate to pass that, and then went on to national selection for that. And then I was on that, they called that the talent team, and I was on that for probably a year and a half, and then they focused on the track, which I wasn't very good at. And it was
like a velodrome.
Yeah. And you've got to be really good at bike skills for that, and I'd only just started riding. And when you go up against kids that have been riding on the track since they're 5 years old, it's a bit much to take in. But
that looks, by the way, yeah, my only experience with velodrome is watching it on the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics.
Yeah.
And when you see a wipeout, it looks harrowing.
Yeah, and you end up in a bunch at a 45-degree angle with 60 people, no brakes, and everyone's not only trying to just ride the bike and be tactical, but sprint as fast as they can. You can't. If you've got any doubt in that, you've lost, and then it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And so I got into road racing. I left school a year early for that, but at the time I went to school, I was the only cyclist, and I went to my swim coach and said, "Look, I'm done with swimming. I want to do cycling." And he was happy with that, but I had to get signed off from the swim team to go cycling. And I went to our head of sport, and he said, "We don't have a cycling team." So why would we? He was an old boy and he was grumpy. And I said, well, that's kind of the school's problem, not mine, but I want to go cycling and I've got a bike. Why can't I? And he said, well, show me you're not shit at it. How do I know you're not, you're any good? And I went back to my dorm and I came back with a letter from British Cycling saying, I'm on this team. And he said, all right, you're a cyclist. Mm-hmm. And he never asked me any questions. And after school, I used to get on my bike and I'd ride, 50 to 80 or 100k. And I'd never tell anyone no one ever asked where I was going. And in hindsight, I'm sure it doesn't work like that anymore.
You mean like the school? So you'd be gone for, say, 4 hours?
No one would know where I was.
Right.
No one cared. And in a world of, I'm sure, as safety as it is now, that's not okay. But I remember we were at school in Somerset, and the nearest city was Bristol, which was a proper drive away. And when I was 15 or so, I got back from a bike ride, and the wife that ran the boarding house said, where have you been? And I said, I've been to Bristol. And she couldn't believe that. And I could see her do the maths that's probably not okay that we've just let a 15-year-old ride a bike to Bristol. But I'm pretty sure she just passed on it. But
it's one of those things. I don't want to write an incident report. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that.
Yeah, that would have been like 160, 180k. But
Jesus.
Yeah, it's good though.
How good. And why did you get into time trialing? Time trialing seems awful. Like it's time trialing, for anyone that doesn't know, it's a varying distance. What's the average distance of a time trial?
We do 2 in the UK, which was 10 mile and 25 miles, so 16k and 40k.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's basically just go as hard as what you effing can for that time. So I'm guessing the 40k like just under an hour.
Yeah. So the best I got is very course dependent, and in time trialing there are fast courses and slow courses. But I got to about, I think I was 4th in the UK. Once or twice for my age, but I think the best I ever did for that was about 50 minutes or 51 minutes on a normal fast course.
I think people can relate to that.
51 to 52 minutes,
Yeah. So it's basically the same speed as what a car goes around the city.
That's the
like
fun
50
thing.
k's an hour.
Yeah, a crap motorbike, a scooter.
Yeah, and you've got to do it on your own. You're not sitting on someone's wheel or drafting.
It's pretty fun when you're down in that tuck position and you've got all the kit on and you do 52, 54k on the flat, and then down the hill you'd be doing 80, 90, 100k, and it's pretty cool. But it goes off power output. It's a normalised way of looking at it, and I think the best I ever was able to do. I was never good at racing. I was good at training, but I think the best I ever did on a TT bike was like 409 watts at 74 kilos, I think, for an hour. She's not very good, but it's good.
Not?
Well, at national level, but I couldn't quite get above that.
To do a sport like that, not cycling, but like time trialing specifically, is there like an element of self-loathing there or something, like a self-hatred? Like it's you need this ability, to put yourself in pain and stay there, and basically torture yourself for the duration of the ride. That's it, isn't it?
It's an awesome feeling, though.
Is it? You just get like the feeling of it.
Yeah.
When you finish, or during.
I kind of love the whole. When you're on it, and it's going well, it's awesome. And I used to love work, so I could out-train anyone. It was the racing that was more of an issue, but time trialing's just fun, but really hard. And the second it's not hard, you need to try harder.
Right.
But it's a good feeling, though. I think any athlete loves being in the zone, and it's kind of that. Mm. Yeah.
You mentioned before the training was good, racing not so good. Did you just get? Was it nerves? What was it?
I never actually, looking back at it, I just never actually figured out how to race. In that, you need to be really aggressive, opportunistic, and you're there to win, and take every chance. And no one cares if you don't win. No one remembers who's come fourth or third, and the difference between being fifth or not finishing at the end of the day, not a lot. And I never gave it a go. And I always, I kind of always felt it was a bigger deal than it really was. Like when I've been an adult and older, and I go back to bike races, and I look in at an equivalent level in New Zealand. I've turned up to a couple of those races when you're looking at 16, 17-year-old, and you look at it and you think, no one cares, just give it a go. And at the time, you just kind of feel like the weight of the world's on your shoulders and you can't get it wrong. But in hindsight, I just never really gave it a go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was your worst accident? I had Sir Ashley Bloomfield on the podcast recently, and he's taken up mountain biking. And he had some quote, like there's two sorts of cyclists, those that have had a bad accident and those that haven't had a bad accident yet.
Yeah, the biggest injury I ever had, I broke a collarbone. We were racing at it was actually on the track that Top Gear do their testing on. It was a 3-day stage race, and we were going around a corner at about 70k an hour, and I just dozed off for a second and overlapped a wheel in front and drove myself straight into the deck. But I broke a collarbone, but I was pretty lucky. I've probably almost killed myself 3 or 4 times, and you learn from those. I've done some.
Well, they do say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
I've had some. Yeah, I remember in Spain, because it's fun going fast on a bike.
Yeah. And
then you figure out how to go quite fast. And I remember doing. I remember in south of Spain, I was down there training on a kind of a motorway that you can ride on the shoulder of a big road, and we're going really, really fast, probably like 90 odd, which is speed's always relative to the road, right? If it's a runway, it's not a big deal. But I remember going into a corner really fast, and then the corner was twice as long as I realised, and I was exiting the corner about midway through it, and I realised that's not good. And just as I'm figuring that out, a huge bus comes the other way, and I remember I looked at the driver looked at me, and I'm looking at the A-pillar of a bus thinking, like, that's definitely where I'm going to be in quarter of a second. And he went wide, and I don't know how, you can always find a bit more grit. Yeah. And I've had that one a few times, but you learn pretty quick. And it's funny, when you get older or more experienced, you kind of give up on descending. Like, you can go really fast on a race, but if you go really fast on every downhill, luck will catch up with you.
It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, fun though.
And one thing, sport for me is sport and movement. It's one of the pillars of my sort of like mental health. Like I need it. If I don't exercise for a couple of days, I feel antsy, I feel ratty, I'm not good to be around. Does that change when you're doing high performance sport? And I suppose one person that springs to mind is actually from your neck of the woods in Cambridge, a cyclist as well, Olivia Podmore, who through the ups and downs of high performance sport and Olympic selection for her, which she missed out on, she ended up taking her own life.
Yeah.
So, did you sort of find, obviously you were like a lower level down from that with your swimming and your cycling, but does it reach the point where you're getting all these mental health benefits from all this movement that you're doing and the endorphins?
It's drugs though, right? That's endorphins.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to unpack in that, but I think having a fantastic training session for hours and the endorphins that come with that is a pretty powerful experience to no longer have. But I think when if I'm answering your question, when I stopped cycling because I was in San Diego, and I was trying to cut weight before the season. And one of the best ways of figuring out your body fat, i.e. when to stop losing weight, is to get a DEXA scan. And so I went, privately booked into a DEXA scan. I told him I'm an athlete, I want to figure out what my body fat is and composition. And so sure, jump on the table, did a reading. And he came out and said, have you ever had a DEXA scan before? And I said, no. And he's like, okay. And he's not a doctor, he's just running the machine. He said, your bone density's not good. And I thought, okay, well, I'll remember that. And he said, no, it's actually not very good at all. And he's like, how bad? Give me a scale. And he's like, we've actually got a scale on the DEXA scan. That's what it is. And he's like, you're about a 60 to 70-year-old female in terms of bone density. And I thought, that's probably not great.
Not for a dude in his early 20s.
Nah. But then I'd happened to hear that low bone density can be an issue in cycling, and it's because when you do chronic endurance training loads and you have no impact in, like running, you're constantly giving your skeletal system a jarring, which puts on stimulates bone growth. You don't have that in cycling, and then you constantly got quite an acid body from so much aerobic exercise, and it pulls the calcium out of your bones, if I remember correctly. So it's quite common. But I learned that too late, and I was like 23, I wasn't really making it where I wanted to be as a cyclist, because you kind of need to be a rock star by the time you're 22, 23.
Oh, so if it's not going to happen by then, it's...
I didn't want to be the 30-year-old cyclist that's still giving it a go. It would be more fun to have made it, or
Right.
my decision not. And I just decided, the problem was, if you keep training with that, you'll never let your body recover and it gets worse. And so I just decided that I'd move on. But that was pretty wrenching.
Yeah,
I remember,
was it?
because, well,
I suppose it's like what identifies you and was a big part of your life.
and I think that's the issue. So that if you ask an athlete what they do, they'll tell you that they are a cyclist. But it's not who they are, it's just what they do. But the problem is, I think most people are fully wrapped up in that identity, and then you just kind of come off the end of that when they stop. And I struggled with that a lot. But I think the issue with that sport is that if you're not in it anymore, you're out. And I think you lose a lot. And I think I don't know how that could be better, but it's definitely tough. I remember going to bed one night crying, pretty upset that I probably 8 years of cycling, and that was it.
So how old were you? Like early 20s?
I would have been like 22.
Yeah.
And but like really upset. And I thought, you kind of I knew that was it. But you're never quite sure. And you're about to bin a shitload. Like when you stop training like that, there's no real transferable skill for that. It just goes in the bin. And I went for a bike ride the next day, and none of the motivation was there. And I kept trying to enjoy the bike ride, and it was gut wrenching and crap, and it kind of sad. And like I didn't get to enjoy that last bike ride, because you realise like there's no point in it anymore. And I think I had no interest in riding a bike for maybe 5 years, and I tried a few times. And I remember you get on the bike, look at your handlebars as you go down the road, and think, I've done this so many times. There's no fun in it. And I maybe like 2 years ago, or a year and a half, 2 years ago, I got back on a bike, and it was just fantastic. And I'm crap on a bike now compared to where I was. And I called up my old coach last year, and he asked me how I was doing. I hadn't spoken to him for years, and it's just fantastic to be on the bike again. And I had to really let go for a long time to get that back. And people could do much better than me, but for me, I just, the love of it completely. There's no purpose in it, right? It took me a while. Now I just love going out on the bike.
Right.
I suck at it, and it's fantastic. Like when I was a kid, summer morning, and it's all good again. But
what do you mean you suck at it? You ride your bike to and from. How many k's would you do on an average week? You
haven't
ride
done
your bike
that.
to and from.
I used to. When I have a bit more time, I ride from Cambridge to Hamilton and back some days, and that's
30 k's each way.
40-ish, I think.
40
But
each way.
it's
That's a big ride.
Hour and a half or so.
So when you say you suck at it, like that seems to be a very functional bike ride. It's good exercise. You get the endorphins and transportation. Are you looking at the speedo?
No, I just, it's nice to sit on a bike and just enjoy the process.
Yeah.
And my power, I don't check power. All of my metrics would be crap, and I just don't care.
Right.
I just like being on a bike. And
but you even said to yourself just before that you suck at it now. But most
I
people
don't-
listening to this would be like, shit, this guy's riding 40 k's to work and 40 work.
yeah, no, but that's not cycling. But it's just good to.
God, is it exhausting being you sometimes?
That's one of the. You remember I mentioned earlier on. It's nice to just no pressure and just enjoy something.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
It took me years to just not care at all and enjoy it, but I think
I feel like deep down there's still a bit of you that cares.
Nah, I'm not good in the middle. It's either it's full on or it's not.
Yeah, right.
I'd love to be good, but nah.
Yeah. So, and all your sporting stuff before you sort of close that chapter of your life and you say your early to mid 20s, would that have been like the lowest point? Obviously, there were lots of highs. Was that the lowest point though, being told about your bone density?
Cycling was pretty. Like growing up's hard, and being in a competitive sport is hard, and I think taught me to be pretty tough. That there was a bit of soul searching because no one told me what to do. I had no idea what to do with that. And you look at kids that go to school, and you just progress up through school, and then you progress to university, and then you go and get a job, and there's a bit of a pathway there. But when you stop sport, you've got to make a conscious decision on what you're going to do. And I was lost for maybe a few months.
Yeah.
That was a bit tough in there, but got myself out of that. And I just have to have something that I get to sink my teeth into. So it wasn't long after that we had the idea for Radix.
All right. Yeah, well, I suppose you had like time and energy to focus your attention.
It was
elsewhere.
difficult for a while.
Yeah.
Like what athletes go through. I've never really been in that situation, I guess, outside of that. But you've just got to. An issue I see is that you just got to be busy at something, and it's got to have meaning, obviously. But I think quitting something, being in a bad place, and then staying at home and not knowing what to do with yourself is a vicious cycle that people have got to get out of. And
wallowing. Yeah, it might feel like the right thing to do, but it's
people get trapped in it and need a hand as well, right? It's not easy, but I was kind of fortunate there.
So do you think that'll be, in terms of your mental health, that'll be the worst experience you've had in your life, just post-cycling? A slump there. How's your mental health been over the years? Is it mostly good?
I think so. I've only ever done stuff for me that's quite hard, I guess. There's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Self-imposed or like put on you by your dad or family?
I don't know. You can only really... at one level, it can only really be self-imposed, right? I think you're kind of often the gatekeeper to how you want to feel about that. But no, I would have been internal and external. But not giving up is only really important when it really sucks, right? If you give up when it's easy, it doesn't really count. Yeah. So I've often just tried to you just carry on. But it gets easier.
That feels like a British thing, the stiff upper lip thing. Just
you don't have a choice, though, right?
Yeah.
Like if you find yourself in a really difficult situation, you don't want to stay there. You just keep moving forwards. But I wouldn't say I'm particularly great at it. But starting Radix and other things is like really hard. And so you just I think you get tougher at it. But I wouldn't say I'm particularly good at it. But as I said earlier on, it kind of life beats it into you.
Yeah. And what's your inner voice like? Are you mostly quite nice to yourself? You're quite kind to yourself? You're quite hard. I reckon you're tough on yourself.
I don't know.
You're flogging yourself.
One thing I used to like about cycling is that there's nothing easier than doing a shitload of work. And
nothing easier than doing a shitload of
work?
Well,
you could just go and do a 6-hour ride, something incredibly hard, and you just feel like you've done it at the end of the day. And I used to love that feeling. And I'm at a loss when stuff's easy and I've got nothing to do. My mind wanders and I feel like I don't have purpose. And you could just go and do an enormous workout, and you've had meaning to your day and you've done a great job. And I don't do well if I've not got something that's full on that you've sunk your teeth into. So like on Sundays, I always get a bit lost.
Can I theorise that? I reckon you need to exhaust yourself to help you sleep at night, because otherwise your mind's just pinging around with ideas.
No, it's a fun one. But no one. You ask about mental health, and it's a kind of a new one to me. But when I was growing up, no one ever discussed that. So I think it's a recent thing, but it's a good conversation to have. It's
very, very much a recent thing. I'm quite a bit older than you. I'm 50, and it was never even discussed. And it was like, I don't know, like it's got a label now, but I think it's a good thing, and it's a good thing to be aware of it and work out. I think everyone needs like a resilience plan or a mental health plan. You need to work out what's right for you and what's not right for you.
The resilience terms are good. One thing you can acknowledge something's difficult, but you need to have the tools to get yourself through it. And that's something I've always focused on a lot. Like I have a lot of methods that I get through something like that. So we were talking earlier on, if everything gets really, really difficult, I'll get a pen and paper and I'll write until I'm clear on what I'm doing. And you might formally you could call it journaling, I guess. Yeah, but I will get clear on my thoughts and sketch until I've got some answers. And I've done that since I was probably 14, and I discovered that because I just bumped into it. No one taught me that, but I'd have heaps of things like that. I'm constantly refocusing, constantly tidying up, constantly simplifying what I'm just that process stops me from getting overwhelmed, for example. So
Right. Like how much are we talking? Like if you had to put a word count on it?
on what? Oh, writing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like pages and pages? Or,
no.
or a couple of sentences? Here?
Sentences, bullet points.
Right.
Yeah, as much as it takes. But
Yeah.
you just got to find a thread to get back onto the path,
Right.
But maybe there's a tool. But I think it's good to acknowledge when people struggle. But I think it's important also to help people find the tools to get past it.
Yeah. So transitioning out of competitive sport, cycling was your last thing and into business. Did you find with business that satisfies that competitive itch for you? Or is it I feel like business, you have wins, you have good days, you have bad days.
So with Radix, we have a problem that we're trying to solve, I think, for the world or for us. I'm very kind of goal or mission oriented. You have to make money because it enables you to build a team, build a better product. And if you're solving a real problem in the world, then to do it at a larger scale. But I don't really care about that. It's always been about nutrition in the world is not in a good spot. And the food industry, as we mentioned earlier on the whole, I think is quite evil. And it caused a lot of the health issues that we're starting to become aware of. And it's good that people are trying to fix that now, but there's a lot of the solutions out there aren't very genuine or very deep, and I think someone needs to fix that. So we're having a crack at that. But I've always chased that goal.
And do you get the same sort of thrill out, like when something good happens, like when you here at Radix, when you form a partnership with Fonterra, say, like do you get the same sort of thrill out of that, like doing a really good time trial or a really good swim? It's
cool when we've discovered things or had breakthroughs or done something where people will just work all night on it. And it's just awesome. No one looks at the clock, no one wants to be anywhere else, and that 7 days a week we have a cool breakthrough or an idea, and that's always really exciting. And it's also fantastic when you see other people excited at it. But protein, for example, and that using that DIAS frame or metric, that project was just a massive deep dive by a small team of people for a couple of weeks, and it was hugely exciting. But it's a rewarding journey. Difficult.
Well, now's probably a good time to transition to some of the business stuff. So at the time of recording this, it's like the 10-year anniversary of Radix.
Of the idea.
So 10 years ago you started this business. Tell us about those humble beginnings. So just you and a mate and just a little dehumidifier? We started out just with an idea, a very basic view on what we could do. 3 of us, my father, myself, and a former schoolmate. No idea on the industry, which kind of helps and hinders. But if a lot of what the industry is doing isn't the right solution, then you get to begin just as fairly as anyone else does. But we began at scratch, and we were in Russell in a garage, testing an idea, no clue at all, reading, studying, phoning people up, meeting people. And we were in Russell in a garage, progressed to a barn, and then we stole an empty house for a while and had a big kitchen. What do you mean you stole it? Well, no, I'm sort of imagining like an abandoned rental or something.
Exactly that.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, and so our product, when you freeze dry it, it's very dry, and then it's very, very sensitive to moisture in the air. I had to tape up every window seam, every crack in the whole house with masking tape and dehumidify it, and it was fun, mad, stupid, and then but you get a start, and then we went from Russell, where we were for probably a year, to an empty industrial unit in Waiuku, where we were probably for 3 years, and it sounds like a really long time, but you learn so much, it's unbelievable. And
so when you started in Russell, from the humble beginnings with your mate and your dad, and then you're in a rental house, like what were your plan? Did you have like a 10-year plan then? Like, could you see yourself being sitting where we are now?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So I was tidying up we've been doing some planning recently, or sharpening some planning up, and I deleted some old files. the bones of it, the main bits of what I was writing 10 years ago are the same as what we're still doing now. It's a long road.
That's
It's kind of
amazing.
cool. Yeah.
We're sitting in Radix Nutrition headquarters now in the Waikato, in an impressive factory. It's just beautiful from top to bottom. But why bloody Hamilton?
Well, we thought when we're in Waiuku, we thought that we should be in Auckland because that's where everyone was, and that's where everyone passes through Auckland. We couldn't find any. There's no room to build a factory. The land prices are ridiculously high. The traffic's difficult, and then rentals difficult, and no one. We wasted. I looked at 18 buildings in Auckland, as we sincerely tried to do what was probably impossible, which is to find an industrial building, a warehouse in Auckland that we could move into and build a factory. And I met a real estate agent called Jamshed. I can't remember his last name, and he was awesome. And he helped me look at, I think it was 18 buildings in the end. And we were always a bargaining chip that a landlord would, or an agency, not him, but the others would use to get 2 warehouse tenants to pay more. And the reality that we realised, no one wants you to install a factory and rip out floors and cut up car parks for a startup that could fail. And we were late, tried really hard. It's a pretty cool process, but it was never going to work. And someone told us if we went to Waikato or Hamilton, you can just buy a greenfield site and start from scratch and just get it right. And we were slow to figure that out, but it's been awesome. But yeah.
So 10 years on now, how would you describe yourself now? Are you still a startup?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got there's a few definitions of startup, and I've forgotten all of the good ones at the moment, but we grow a lot each year, and we've got a long way yet to go until we get to our goal. So we've no interest in staying still, and we want to be. I would love it if this would be one of the best examples of what New Zealand can do on the world stage. And the global food industry is shit in a lot of areas, and someone's got to fix it. And I'm not from New Zealand, but the spirit and the character that New Zealanders have is outstanding. And I kind of like the fact that we're doing it here.
Yeah.
But it should be a very big. What we're trying to solve will eventually be solved at a very large scale to make a significant impact on the quality of nutrition that everyone faces at the moment.
Yeah, so your Radix Nutrition, anyone that listens to my podcast, I've been banging on about your protein powders and your smoothie powders, which are amazing. You also do like dehydrated, meals. Freeze-dried.
Yeah.
You also do freeze-dried. What's the difference?
Freeze-drying gives a much higher quality product.
Right.
And dehydrating is quite damaging to product.
Right.
So you're just taking moisture out of food at the end of the day. But freeze drying is about 10 times more expensive and a lot harder. But if you bought a raisin that's all shriveled up, that's dehydrated. And freeze drying is a different process. It will leave stuff looking intact, kind of.
So would you say what do I call it? Dehydrated.
Yeah, we're not a freeze drying company. We just use a freeze dry.
Right.
Yeah. People get that mixed up. It's the heaviest bit of kit in the factory, but it's just one of a few.
Yeah. I mean, the gear here is it's mind-blowingly good. Okay, so that's where things are at now with Radix Nutrition.
Yeah.
Where do you see it in 5 to 10 years?
So the problem that we're trying to fix, I don't know how to answer that without
giving away.
No, without just looking stupid. But
How do you mean? Why would you look stupid? Because your plans are that lofty?
You should. If we get this right, it needs to be a really big company to have the difference that someone should be doing.
A big company isn't, because anyone that's watching this on YouTube or online right now will see the factory behind me and they'll say, well, shit, this looks like a pretty big...
This is tiny.
Okay.
Yeah, no, done well, this should be a 500 plus million revenue company in 10 years. And it'll be sad if it's not bigger, to be honest, because when I don't mean that I'm not really interested in the revenue, but if you do the maths on how many people, I gave you that statistic earlier on that 1 in 4 globally are pre-diabetic. 1 in 3, the stats get a little bit woollier around that, but 1 in 3 have pretty suboptimal metabolic health.
Right. Yeah. You were this was off the air. You were explaining this to me before, and showed me a graph which shows the exponential growth, and it's basically due to processed food over the last sort of 30-ish years.
Yeah.
Right. And pre-diabetic, that means what? It means
pre-diabetes is one of the markers that we use to try and understand the quality of people's metabolism.
Right.
So pre-diabetes would mean elevated blood sugar levels over a longer period of time, which can have all sorts of knock-on effects. But it basically means that one of the significant factors of that is nutrition. It basically means that what people are eating is breaking them, and it's pretty sad. It's a first world problem, so it affects everyone.
Yeah,
and it ends up affecting kids and parents, and it's not a good problem to have. And the thing I find pretty frustrating, it was the reason that we started Radix, is that no one's really fixing it. So most of industry is pretty happy if people keep digging themselves deeper into that hole. And the knowledge exists scientifically, the technology exists to make a product, and yet no one's really been doing it in a meaningful way to enable someone to fix their diet simply and overcome those problems. So that's when I say it's not that our interest in growing Radix to that scale, although it'd be really fun, but it needs to be fixed at that scale. So
right.
This would be a tiny factory, and indeed you look in New Zealand at some food factories and they're enormous because a lot of people eat, but this should be
well, everyone, I think
it's a big problem.
Yeah.
So
but you're don't you think though, even if people know when they're eating shit food, right? But they do it.
No, they don't.
Like if I go to KFC,
no, but that's off the end of the spectrum.
How do you mean? What do you
well, if you, the bit you want to worry about is when people think they're doing the right thing or are trying to do the right thing and struggling.
Oh, gotcha.
So if someone's knowingly going to a really unhealthy fast food brand, you don't get points for that, right? And you might be forced to do that out of convenience, but you're not really in the frame at that point. But when you get someone who's gone to a doctor and been told that they're not well and that they need to fix their diet, otherwise something nasty could happen, or you've got someone that's depressed or sad because of how they look, or when someone needs help in changing or has decided that they want to change and they don't get help, I find that quite sad. It is at those times that the difference between what someone will start to eat or knows to eat or can eat through practicality is actually a long way away from what we know would be ideal. Right. And nutrition science and physiology and everything else that's known in health is really complicated. Like, no one's going to figure that out anytime soon. It's not a solvable problem. It's immensely complex. And yet you just end up at the supermarket, you're not sure what to eat or cook. And that's kind of bollocks in 2023, that you can have an iPhone or some in staggering level of technological sophistication. And yet the thing that kills a lot of people, no one's actually meaningfully put forward an unbiased, genuine solution to that, or there aren't many. And that's what we set out to create.
So how would you like Radix to look in like 10 years from now? Like a big international brand, everyone eating the dehydrated meals, or you're planning on moving into different sort of things?
No, we've got a lot of other products.
Yeah.
So 10 years from now, we would hope to be pioneering or right at the forefront of personalised nutrition. We'd want to be a household name. We'd need to be. It'd be fun if we're still in New Zealand or Australia, and a great company. I've always quite liked Tesla, if you look at a mission-oriented company.
Jeez, I've heard of that.
Solving a real problem. I know they've got people love them, or maybe people don't, but you couldn't argue that people there didn't care.
I think Elon Musk is incredibly polarizing, but I think he's a genius myself. And if I see that he's appearing on a podcast, I'll always listen to it. And the fact that he's thinking on just a different plane to everyone else. It's,
and has thousands of other people solving those same problems. Yeah. It's pretty cool. But we should be a really big company by then, done well.
Right. That's brilliant. Well, I wouldn't put it past you. Like 10 years ago in a garage, and now we're sitting here in this magnificent warehouse, and also just seeing how you live and how you drive yourself and how you apply yourself and your tunnel vision. I think wherever you see yourself being in 10 years, that's exactly where you will be.
Yeah, well, it's a good journey.
One thing I need to bring up with you, you've become a dad recently. Congratulations, by the way. You've got a son, 12 months old.
Yeah.
Happy Meals are going to be part of your your life.
Happy Meals, did he say?
Happy Meals. Yeah. If you're a dad of a kid, he's going to watch some ads on TV or pre-roll on YouTube or whatever. You're going to have to break and go to McDonald's, aren't you? Isn't McDonald's going to become part of your...
We'll see about that.
Well, I was talking to your wife earlier. She said she may introduce him to chocolate this weekend.
Oh, that's okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah. No, we we'll do our best for him.
Yeah. How are you gonna get around the McDonald's thing?
I'm sure it will happen. We'll see what we can do for him. Give him some purpose, and I hope he's an athlete when he grows up.
Yeah.
He went to gymnastics for the first time this week, which was pretty cool. At 1, I didn't know they did that, but he loved it. I think quite basic stuff, but he had a fantastic time.
Yeah.
But yeah.
How are you going to, because you like to think every generation gets slightly better or tweaks or makes improvements, how are you going to raise him differently from how your dad raised you?
Or how I was raised. And looks pretty hard raising a kid. I'd be doing pretty well, I think, if I matched that in hindsight. But I think sport was great.
Yeah.
One thing I always got from sport that I was sorry to see a lot of other people didn't have is the chance to really try hard at something and be a part of a team. And to learn how to practice for me was a big deal. And I think it's sort of mastery or self-mastery or the ability to chase something you can never catch is a big deal. And I hope he discovers that in something, maybe sport, maybe art, I don't know.
Yeah.
But sports are pretty cool way of learning these things. And
has it been a fun thing for you, because seeing your dad as a grandfather, how is he different as a grandfather to how he was as a father?
I think being grandfathers, he's still getting used to that. But
is this his first grandkid?
No. Or getting used to it with me, I guess. But no, but he mum and dad loved it. It's good. We live in Cambridge and they live in Russell, so there's a bit of a distance. But it's been an amazing process. It's pretty cool having a small human in the house.
Yeah. How's it changed you? Or do you think it's changed you at all?
Even less sleep. It takes a while to realise that you've got 0 free time, and that you feel pretty guilty if you feel like you're wasting time. But it's been an amazing process. It's kind of cool. I guess everyone says that, but you learn a lot about. I've learned a lot about myself when you realise a little bit of introspection.
Yeah.
But it's...
what are the biggest learnings you think about yourself?
I've focused on having him as happy as possible, because I for various reasons, but...
Impossible with babies though, isn't it? They cry all the time.
Yeah, but I'd love him to have a good, happy start to life and to experience things. And we've met some wonderful people, like daycare, which I haven't been around since I was there myself. Those guys are amazing. And you discover a part of a community, and not my own, but living in Cambridge now, that's just fantastic, of people that devote so much care and attention to other people's kids. It's amazing to see. And as I said earlier, I guess I focus a little bit myopic in what I focus on. It's lifted my horizons a little bit, and you see what's around you and appreciate why it's important, and that's been pretty cool.
Has that been something that you've just wanted to do, or something that you've had to do in terms of
have a family?
No, in terms of like you're being present and engaged when you're with your son, rather than focusing on Radix stuff.
I'm having to learn that, but again, it's a fun process.
Yeah,
but I'm not good at that, and I'm learning. Yeah, but
that's good. I think it'll make you better at running your business in some ways to give you a broader perspective.
It's a great teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And, you and your wife, so you've been together since almost as long as Radix. She's been...
Yeah,
she's German?
She's German. She was travelling in New Zealand, work and travel. And I met her in Russell. And she was in New Zealand for a few months. And then we had a 5-year long-distance relationship. So... we'd see each other maybe twice a year, and then that was FaceTime calls morning and evening for like 5 years.
That sounds arduous, but I'm guessing for you were like, yes, I can focus on building this business and have a relationship.
and he used to be on FaceTime, phone in the factory somewhere, headphones at 11 o'clock at night. I'd be doing something and she'd be studying at home in Germany, and we'd just be hanging out. But yeah, I think it probably had to be that way, looking back at it, because I didn't have a lot of time. But she's incredibly understanding, although I pushed that right to the edge almost continuously. But
I was chatting with her earlier. She works here. She seems as passionate about the business as what you are.
Yeah, I think I balance that kind of okay.
Yeah,
probably right on the edge. But
was it? Would you say was it like love at first sight, or was it a slow burn with each other?
She's kind of fantastic.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So straight away.
Yeah, really comfortable around her, happy.
Yeah.
She's been great, really supportive. Yeah, that's been good.
And what about the proposal? You guys got married like only recently, a couple of years ago, like during COVID.
I was pretty slow at that.
Were you?
Yeah, so I had all of the hints, everyone pushing, but I was busy. But I was just not good at any of that.
Right. And you know what, like picking up on the social cues or being romantic, or
Mum brought down her mother's old engagement ring.
Right.
And said, "I put it in your bedside drawer. You should probably hurry up." And then
was it just not a priority with you? You're like, we'll get there eventually.
I've been busy, and I thought, hey, we'll get there. But,
yeah.
No, I picked up what everyone was putting down and eventually figured that out. And then I'm not massively inclined into all...
Not a romantic? No. What do you...
Probably not.
Well, how was the proposal? What did you do? You get down on one knee?
I did.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not good at it, what else do you do, right? I just... no, I did the whole lot. But... I couldn't have anyone there taking pictures and stuff like that. That would have been way too much pressure. But
what do you mean? In what way? We're surrounded by cameras every day.
No, it was.
Are you just quite sort of private when it comes to that stuff?
I am.
Yeah.
But it's the best way, I think. But no, it was good. It meant a lot. Happy memory.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. And what was the wedding like? What was everyone eating? Were they eating?
We were between 2 lockdowns, so. We didn't know the wedding would go well. We were up in Russell, and we had a fantastic wedding in New Zealand, which was awesome. Annie's family didn't get to come over, which was pretty tough for her because of travel restrictions. And then, what was it, 11 o'clock at night, it got announced that the next morning the country was going into lockdown. And yeah, it's a difficult time. We've got another wedding in Germany later in the year for her family. So it's been good, but it's kind of cool growing up, going through those experiences, but I wouldn't say I'm good at it, but it's everyone's pretty strong at getting through that, and it happens.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Were you present at the birth?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. How was that? Was it a life-changing experience? Were you emotional? You cry?
It was emotional, but I didn't cry. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's an amazing process. Just completely eye-opening, and I maybe I was clueless as a kid around things like that, but it's just an incredible process as you go through that, and yeah, life's pretty cool when you see how it works, and it's been an amazing experience. But no, just hopefully it goes well. we'll raise a super baby. Nutrition shouldn't be an issue.
Is he going to be swimming 1,500 metres by the time he's 4?
It might happen. Yeah, but I hope he enjoys it.
Amazing. Hey, thank you so much for your time today. Mike Rudling, CEO and founder of Radix Nutrition. Even though you still describe yourself as a startup, I'd still describe you as a New Zealand success story, I think.
Well, we're really proud to be in New Zealand, and it's meant a lot being here, and it's a fantastic country. And I think let's show everyone what we can do.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting to be on this journey with you, and it's exciting to think where you will be in 5 or 10 years from now. Can't wait to see it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you so
How was
much.
it? He said shit a couple of times. He swore. Does that count as a swear word?
Yeah,
or
it
not?
does. Yeah, I tried that.